Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen we're making a show-stopping, amazing rainbow cake. So let's get started. First off, set your oven to 350 so it's nice and hot, and now in a large bowl, we're gonna combine all of the dry ingredients, starting with 5 cups or 600 grams of all-purpose flour. It's a big cake, a very big cake. So much flour. There we go. For a little contrast, I'm adding 1 teaspoon of salt. I like using a sea salt because it's nice and mellow. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. And to really puff things up, 1 tablespoon of baking powder. By the way, this cake is 6 8-inch layers. If you don't have 6 cake pans, which almost no one does unless you have a YouTube cooking channel, then you can make the batter and then bake it off in batches. So you're gonna color it, and then you'll bake the first 2 or the first 3, and the next 2 and next 3, and so on and so forth until all the layers are baked. And we're also gonna add in 3 cups or 600 grams of granulated sugar. This is like the biggest, most show-stopping cake I've made in quite a while. Our scale is done for the moment. Now we're gonna grab a whisk and mix this up. Carefully, this bowl is very full. Very full indeed. All right, that looks nice and mixed. Set that aside. Now in a separate large bowl, I'm gonna crack 6 large room temperature eggs. You always want room temperature ingredients when you're making a cake because the cake will bake evenly if it's not ice cold in the middle. If you're using cold milk, cold eggs and everything else, the outside will be burnt, the center will be underdone and soft, and you'll be sad. So room temp it is. Most importantly, especially since I did the big bowl and not a small one, is to check for shells. You never know. I'm in the clear. To the eggs, we're gonna add 1.5 cups or 360 mils of whole milk. Right in. And 1.5 cups or 360 mils of veggie oil. If you're wondering, why wouldn't you use butter for this cake? It's because it's giant and you will definitely be keeping it in the refrigerator. So a refrigerated cake is gonna be rock hard and does not have a nice mouthfeel if you use butter. If you use veggie oil or olive oil, it'll be a delicious soft cake right out of the fridge. And to make this beautiful and delicious, we're adding 1 tablespoon of a nice vanilla. This is the flavor in the cake, so don't skimp on that. Let's give this a whisk too. This cake looks so impressive when it's done, but it's actually really easy and it's a fun project. If you just want a weekend project, you have some kids at home, or you want to make a cake everyone's gonna love. Okay. So easy. Here's the deal though. We're gonna combine this, but the next step is to grab 6 bowls and all the food coloring we need and divide this out. So let's grab that right now and then combine, because I don't like the batter to sit for too long. I want my oven nice and hot. And by the way, if you're gonna cook this in batches, just make sure you refrigerate the batter that's waiting for the oven so that all the leavening agents don't play themselves out and you have a flat cake. I found some bowls, have all of my food coloring ready, and now I'm gonna combine the wet and the dry. For this, I'm using my special dough hook, but you could actually just use a spatula or a whisk. Pour it in. Now, carefully combine the wet and the dry just until the flour disappears. You don't want to overmix cake batter because cakes should be delicate and melt in your mouth. And unlike bread, which is has a nice chew and really kind of tougher, you don't want to activate any of the proteins in the flour. So we're being very gentle and combining it just until the flour disappears. The scale is your friend in this step because I don't feel like eyeballing this batter being divided by 6. I want to know exactly. So zeroing out my scale with the bowl on, that's empty. These are identical. Oh, no. 2,156 grams. So I will use the grams, divide that by 6, and that's how much batter I should divide into each of my smaller bowls. So each layer should be about 360 grams. Make sure you zero your scale out before you add the batter. And if you don't have a scale, you can totally eyeball it. I've done it before. I just like it to be a bit more precise if possible. Some people are so good at measuring volumes by eye, and I am not one of them. So know your strengths and work towards them. What would our rainbow cake be without rainbow colors? So you're gonna wanna grab violet, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. I'm using gel food coloring, which is so concentrated and strong. I'll use like 1 or 2 drops per layer. If you're using regular food coloring, like from the grocery store, that's more watery kind, you're gonna use a lot more. Just warning you. Starting off with violet. If you're using gel, try like 2 drops. Give that a mix and just add color until it looks correct. It should be a little deeper than you want it to be because the color changes and lightens up in the bake. Just make sure you're happy with the colors before we add them into the pan. If you don't want to use food coloring and you're gonna make this cake, I don't know what to do because you can have some like spirulina and there's some blue algae, so you could have blue and green, raspberry powder to make a pinkish red, but otherwise it'll be kind of challenging for some other ones. Let me know if you have suggestions in the comments. These colors look great. Grab your pans, a little baking spray or butter. Give them a spritz, and for safety, I'm gonna add in a round of parchment paper. This makes sure the cake will release perfectly with no issues. Remember, if you don't have enough pans, just bake in batches and make sure that you keep this refrigerated so it doesn't lose its wonder. It's time to transfer our batter into our pans and get this into the oven so we can make the frosting and finish this cake up. My rainbow pans are ready to go into the oven, 350 for about 20 minutes or until the center is all set. You can use a toothpick or test for springiness. In you go. While our cakes are baking, we're gonna make an easy and delicious vanilla frosting. 2.5 cups of unsalted room temperature butter. But room temperature does not mean falling apart like super soft. I can use just a little bit of force and press into the butter and it yields to the touch. That's 454 grams. When you're making an American buttercream, it's so easy to like nudge it up a little bit if you want a little bit more for decoration. Pop a whisk attachment on, and now we're going to cream this butter up so it's nice and soft. I'm also gonna add in a heaping 1/4 teaspoon of salt. With anything sweet, you need to add some salt so you really taste it. Otherwise, it's one flat note of just like dull sugar. So you need a little bit of salt and extra flavorings to liven things up. My butter's creamed up. I'm gonna scrape the bowl down, and then we're gonna mix on medium for 5 minutes. I wanna pump a ton of air and volume into this butter. Okay. Lock it off, medium, 5 minutes. A few minutes later, I have to show you this butter. Oof. It is so pale and glossy. I don't know if you can tell, but I wanna show you this compared to the original color. Look at that difference. That is very stark. And yes, I did scrape the bowl down a couple times during that 5-minute beating. All right, we're gonna add in 9 to 10 cups of powdered sugar. That's between 11 and 1,200 grams. Okay, we're gonna mix this on low. I'm probably using just under half a cup of cream. I'm adding it in a tablespoon at a time between the powdered sugar. Sugar, cream, until it is the perfect sweetness and consistency that you want. If it all collects in the whisk like it has here, just increase speed to high for a second and then it'll get flung out. A little cream, a little powdered sugar. Just repeat until all the ingredients are done. A little powdered sugar. All right, this is coming along, but 1, what's going on in the middle of this is crazy. And 2, I need to scrape the bowl down. There's probably some just pure butter on the bottom and a lot of sugar on top. So scrape it down probably twice during this process. Okay, that's a lot of buttercream, but it's a big cake. I've had so many requests for rainbow cakes over the years, and I'm excited to have finally finished developing this cake, make a video for it, and share it with you. It's really a fun cake to make, and delicious too. Whenever I make an American buttercream, I am always fairly liberal with the actual cream you're adding in. Otherwise, it can be kind of stiff and gritty, so you really want to have the butter whipped appropriately and a good amount of cream to loosen things up. This is a layer cake, so it can't be too loose, but take it right to the edge. Buttercream has to have some strength to hold the cake together and not let it fall over. There is no flavor in here right now, so we're gonna add about 2 teaspoons of whatever you want. I'm gonna use vanilla, but you could use almond extract, orange blossom water, rose water. All these different flavors are actually really fun, and you don't always have to use vanilla. Even though it seems like I do. Okay, time for a taste. That's nice. So creamy. One warning. This is a perfect, wonderful consistency right now. But if I let this sit for like 5 minutes, it'll start getting bubbly, losing that wonderful consistency, and just not be as great to decorate with. So I'm gonna leave it in here, attached to the mixer, and use the buttercream, and then whip the buttercream. Use the buttercream, whip the buttercream. It only needs like 30 seconds of whipping to bring it back to that wonderful creamy consistency. And that is important when we're decorating the outside of the cake. For the inside, it doesn't matter. The outside, it does. And by the way, you can see, I didn't use all the sugar. I added sugar until I had the flavor and consistency that I like. Once your cakes are out of the oven, let them cool in the pan for like 10 minutes and then invert them onto a wire rack and let them cool completely. If they're warm, your tall 6-layer cake will start slipping and sliding as the buttercream melts. So totally cool. Okay, just giving a little whip because we were setting cameras. And here's the deal, purple first or violet. And if you're worried about the cake moving around, just a little smear of frosting to help it stay. Just like that. Center it on your cake plate. And then we want about half a cup of frosting between each layer. Smooth it out into a nice thin layer. My cakes are a little bit domed. It doesn't bother me at all, but if you wanted them to be perfectly flat, you could use cake strips or make your own. The only issue is I don't have 6 sets of cake strips for this size pan, so I wanted to bake them all together. Next is blue, right on top. More frosting. Smooth it out into a thin layer. Go for green. As you go, just make sure that things are not leaning and that they're nice and straight. So you want to have a good base to work from. That's nice. Yellow, but we need a base for that. You can see the texture is a little frothy right now, and that's because this hasn't been whipped. Before we add that last layer on, I am gonna really cream the buttercream again and make sure it's perfectly smooth. Okay. All right, add that yellow layer on, straighten it up. Time to add orange on. A little more frosting. And finally, red. This is a mega cake. So tall, oh my gosh. Big scoop of frosting on top. And by the way, if your cake was a little warm, you can totally see how it would just start sliding and falling. In fact, if you misjudged, grab a big skewer and place it right through the center and let the cake cool in the fridge. It'll set up and then you can continue frosting it. I'm gonna frost this cake and make it look beautiful, but first, I'm grabbing a turntable so everything can just move around really nicely, like that. And I also need a couple more tools. I have a lot of gaps to fill in this cake, so grab some buttercream. I'm using an offset spatula, but you could also use a bench scraper, and start slathering that buttercream on, and then we'll smooth everything out once it's completely covered. When you have a giant cake like this with tons of layers, there's an issue. And that is, as you press on one side, the cake will just want to flop over. So go ahead and just use your fingers to brace the top on the opposite side while you press. So here, my fingers are gonna provide support while I get the frosting on. And then when I smooth it, I can get rid of the little fingerprints. My cake is coated finally. So now it's time to smooth things out. This is your friend in the kitchen. It's a bench scraper. This lets you turn the cake and get a nice smooth finish. My cake's mostly smooth. Don't go crazy and try to get a mirror perfect cake because that is a road to frustration. If you did want to do that, you would do a crumb coat really close, refrigerate the cake, make another batch of frosting, and then do a full thick frosting on the outside so it'd be perfectly smooth. As it is, it's really difficult to get a smooth edge because the layers are all a little bit askew, just a tiny bit. This cake is delicious, but it's a little ho-hum, so I'm gonna make an extra tiny batch of frosting so we can get some decorations onto it. And yes, I'm gonna grab some sprinkles too. So just carefully make little spirals as you turn the cake. It has a lot of height, depth, and dimension. That looks so much better. You can't have a plain rainbow cake. For a bit of visual interest on the bottom, I'm adding a ripple of buttercream with a smaller close start attachment. I'm finishing my cake off with a sprinkle of sprinkles just over the top and the bottom, everywhere. Once assembled, give your cake a quick chill so it's easy to cut, then slice it up and you're ready to enjoy. So gorgeous. I cannot get over how pretty this cake is, especially when that piece comes out. So soft, moist, and delicious. The vanilla really comes through. Oh my gosh, I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like this video, check out my special cakes playlist.